Travis Wayne Goodsell. An email comment reminded me of Nicolas Cage's 8mm. And in there is the quote, "When you dance with the devil doesn't change. The devil changes you." I have seen too many Mormons who choose to stay in Mormonism, thinking that they can make change from within, not realizing that the church changed them. You cannot change the prophets. When you think you've changed the prophets, they've tricked you, and they got you to change. One example is the bishop who was upset with the church in which bishops did not have a set list of questions for temple worthiness interviews for little kids. And he requested that the church provide that so that bishops don't go off script and talk about graphically sexual matters with little kids. The church was offended. "How dare you try to change us?" and excommunicated him. And so, in retaliation, he started a whole movement to protect LDS children and got a sufficient force that got the church to do what he had asked in the first place. That the church provide a list of questions, just like for adults, and to allow children and women to have a witness in all bishops' interviews. So now when you have a gay bishop, men are in danger. Couldn't you make it available for all people? Everybody gets a witness? But that's not the danger part, as it was with the Boy Scouts, which is another example, by the way. But the church, if you hadn't noticed lately, are changing to order Mormons to practice polygamy. And with polygamy, Nelson has lowered the age of child brides to 11 years old. That's how they tricked you for that one instance. Boy Scouts. The church, for a long time, has been the biggest sponsor of the Boy Scouts, providing the boys and thus providing Boy Scout leaders who would go on to rape the boys. And so when it hit the fan, the church at first was in denial, refused to change, and then the Boy Scouts no longer required that boys remain morally straight. And then they allowed women and the little girls in the Boy Scouts, as if the Girl Scouts wasn't enough for girls. I wanted to play volleyball, and California had the law in which if there was no sport for a particular sex, that those of that sex could play or try out for the other sex's team. I really wanted to play volleyball, and I was strongly considering that, but I knew I wouldn't have the backing of my parents. But nonetheless, the church was now starting to get sued. Lawsuits were coming in of the sex abuse that had been going on for decades, since the 70s. And eventually, the settlement lawsuit would involve 3,000 boys who had been sexually assaulted, and not just in Utah, but in Arizona as well. And so, the church bailed. And as the settlements were trying to get finalized and the church's lawyers were continually ruining the negotiations, Nelson moved it up quicker. He did away with all Boy Scouts and then began the young men's and young women's activities or program to replace it with. So 11-year-old girls, child bride polygamy. You don't change the devil changes you. Ordained women, Kate Kelly. She was upset that the church is patriarchal abusers and wanted women to be treated equally, to not be treated as sex slaves. And she didn't fully understand church history. She never did refer to the Joseph Smith Papers, in which Joseph Smith gave priesthood and priesthood office to women. It was Brigham Young who did away with it. And so, yes, even Oakes comes out and says, it is not the will of God that women should have priesthood office and priesthood. He's next women to be president. And so she was protesting and getting women to wear slacks at church. And sneaking into priesthood meetings, as certain priesthood meetings then were interrupted with the protesters. And so she gets excommunicated. And then notice what the church did afterward. Women can now wear slacks. Women can now wear slacks on their mission. Women in the Relief Society and the Young Women's and the primary were put in councils. Not given priesthood office, but councils. Church did a whole series push councils. The importance of councils. See, we're not sexist. We're lying to you and deceiving you. And these women are testimonials that we're not sexist. And then the temple change for polygamy. Child bride polygamy. As women get fooled into thinking, oh, we no longer obey our husband, we now obey Jesus. But Nelson speaks for Jesus, and Nelson tells women to follow the family proclamation, which says that the man presides in the home and the women should obey him. But you got fooled, because you no longer wear the veil, and Eve gets a bigger speaking role, which is already in the selections from the book of Moses. They prey upon stupidity. You cannot change the devil. The devil changes you. So, you have to leave it to the professionals, people. Let us deal with the church, as I've exposed them. Nelson, that's his name, baby name meaning. Russell Marion, Lucifer. So, get out of the church. Get out now. 24 days left. They that come shall burn you. And you've already paid the church who paid the enemies to do that. Get out now. And those of you who are ex-Mormon and looky-loos, curious to see if Joseph Smith is going to be proven true as a prophet, who are living here in Utah, do not get it. They that come shall burn you too. It's called collateral damage. You can complain all you want that you're not Mormon, but you live in Utah among the Mormons. You are going to be burned with them. And so, yeah, I know, I'm here too. But that's why, is because you didn't go in the Exodus in 2020. And so, it's now the Mulek, Limhi scenario that the Book of Mormon told you about if you didn't hearken. So, quit arguing with me and start preparing.